Welcome to The Record Show, your virtual spin around the vinyl industry. Brought to you by Radio Wasteland Records. Yes, Midland has a record store. Here's your host, Jim Gleason.
Greetings from the Wasteland and welcome to another edition of The Record Show. And we've got a cool one headed your way today. We'll check in once again with Ken Norton to get the latest on all of the new releases headed to an indie record store near you. We'll take a closer listen at an album of epic proportions, and we'll poke gentle fun at album covers. But first, we'd like to welcome to the Record Show a well-known person from the mid-Michigan music scene and someone who has got something very, very big on his plate. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Andy Dalton to the Record Show. Andy, thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I mentioned you are a staple in the mid-Michigan music scene, and you have been for several years, playing in a lot of different bands, working with recording studios. And some time ago, you stopped in here to the store, and you'd mentioned a project that you were working on about really kind of, I guess the best way to term this would be an epic album that you were really kind of trying to get out of your system and into a recording. And at the time you were starting, I believe, the recording process, and this is really kind of taking you in a really cool direction.
Yes. So I more or less started writing songs in 2004 and finished the final song, I want to say 2016 or 17. And it's a project that I've been wanting to do my whole life, but with touring in my band See You Next Tuesday for my early 20s. And then when that was done, went to college, got a job, ran Dirt Fest, opened a rehearsal studio called Lift Street Studios here in Frankenmuth. I've always had all these other things going on, and that was kind of in the background, but I wasn't recording until about 2013. I started the recording process, and that lasted up through about the end of 2017.
Now, the album has been completed for some time now and been technically released digitally, correct?
Yeah, December 20th, 2019, I want to say, was the digital release day. Yep.
Fireside Wake has got, was it 19 tracks? And
Yep.
It clocks in at over 90 minutes long. This is no small undertaking to both create and record, was it?
Absolutely not. And considering I'm pretty much the only musician on that record, aside from a guest appearance from Andy Reid, from my dad, Brody played harmonica on a track, and my friend Jay Glish did vocals, background vocals. That said, I'd record every part one at a time. So, if it's a song with 5 instruments, I had to perform it 5 times: drums, bass, guitar, vocals, piano, whatever's on it. So it takes a very long time just to get one song done, let alone 19 songs, and some of which clock in close to 10 minutes. So not only is it a long album, but there's some very long songs on the album.
Now, the music itself, musically speaking, it's covers a wide range of genres. And I think your background in the bands that you played in earlier, you were a little on the heavier side.
Sure.
Correct? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Yep. I was in a grind metal band.
Okay. Well, I can see flavors of that peppered throughout the album, but it also goes a bit further. You mentioned the experimentation. There's some really neat sound effects that wind its way through the space rock, if you will, call it the genre, but it also gets bluesy in spots. So how did you tie all of this together to make one experience?
Some of my favorite artists are like Elliott Smith, Hum, Foo Fighters, Cave In, Converge, Smashing Pumpkins, Black Keys, White Stripes. So it's like I listen to all these different things, and I tend to just write whatever I feel like writing. So sometimes I'm in a space rock mood, I write a space rock song. Sometimes I'm in a blues mood and I end up writing a blues song. And it's kind of like throwing it all into the same pot. At first I was like, can I really do this? Is this allowed? And, Andy Reid, God bless him, through the whole thing, he was just like, it's your record, man. You can do whatever you want with it. And I was like, thank you. That's what I needed to hear.
I don't want to make it sound like, hey, it's all over the map, Andy. It's really kind of wild, but it somehow really ties it all together, and it makes, I think, a great overall experience with that. Getting to one of the main reasons, this is what we call the Record Show as well. One of the things you'd mentioned when you brought this project up, when you told me about it a couple of years ago, was where you would like to head with this, and that is for a release on vinyl. Now, something this large, something this grandiose is going to take up a lot of space on vinyl, is it not? Where are you headed with this, and why did you decide that this was important to be on a record?
The main goal was always, I want to put my record on my record shelf with the rest of my heroes and stuff. So it was never about CD. It was never about digital. It was always like, I want to put out a record. I want to put out an album on vinyl. So that was very important to me. Then I found myself in this kind of conundrum as we recorded, we were on song 12 and then 15 and then 18 and 19. I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is, how long is this thing? How much can you reasonably fit on a record? Well, then I started doing research on what are the pitfalls of putting more on a record? How can you cram more on? What are you sacrificing? And I learned all about, groove spacing and frequency depth and overall dB levels and the amount of time you can have on each whatever. So I was like, okay, in the name of quality, it's going to take as many sides of vinyl as it takes. And that ended up being 5 sides with the sequencing that I want.
Now, this is just like the writing and the production, the recording, the producing of this record is no small task, is it? And to do this, you are turning to some fans to help fund this. It's not going to be an easy process, is it?
Not an easy process by any means. I originally planned to go live with crowdfunding last year, but we all saw what happened. So it just didn't seem appropriate to do that type of thing until I could see how things shook out and got a better feel. And as time went on, I feel like now it's getting to the point where it's kind of holding me back from doing more things. So I was like, you know what, the time is now. I need to go live with this crowdfunding. But that to say, so basically, I want to get this project done, and I've set up this crowdfunding and this pre-sale to hopefully get capital and liquidity into my hands now. Order all the vinyl, order the CDs, and I've included all sorts of cool things like a 2-sided puzzle, coffee, t-shirts, hoodies, normal band merchandise.
And the top level of this, of course, is to get people to pre-order, if you will, the album version of this, the album version of Fireside Wake.
Yeah, so the crowdfunding, I guess you could say it's a glorified pre-sale, but that's front and center. That's the most important thing, is buy that vinyl.
Let's talk a little bit about that vinyl packaging. I mean, the artwork for Fireside Wake is impressive in and of itself, but you're envisioning a triple LP package that is also quite the experience, correct?
Yep. So I love opening up a record and it being an experience beyond just the music, where obviously the art extends beyond the music. It extends into the packaging and the physical aspect of it, much like you were talking with Mr. Alice Cooper about his album packaging and how it's so elaborate and weird and goofy. And it's like, that stuff will stick with you forever. So my thing is, I want to put my money where my mouth is. I want to put the same experience out there, or at least potentially put that same experience out there that I would want to have as a fan. So I'm trying to create the coolest thing that I can from my own perspective for anyone else who wants to enjoy it and come along for the ride. Yeah.
So it's a triple LP. They're going to be tricolored, correct? That's the hope.
The coloring is, my idea is disc 1 is going to be red, disc 2 is going to be green, disc 3 is going to be blue in some fashion. I haven't decided if I want to do like a splatter or a marble or something goofy, but they're definitely going to be themed in that color set in some fashion. It's not going to be just straight black vinyl. I wanted to do some sort of coloring to it.
And the pressing themselves, you're turning to some big guns to help out with this, correct?
Yes, the goal is to press through Third Man Pressing in Detroit, Michigan.
Well, what is the time frame for the crowdfunding and the album release? Where can you tell us that this is headed?
So March 1st through March 31st is when the crowdfunding store is open at thefiresidewake.com. That's when you can order your t-shirts, puzzles, coffee, most importantly, the vinyl, CD sets, other experiential packages. But after March 31st, the store is going to essentially close and no more orders can be taken once April 1st comes around, and not as an April Fool's joke or anything, but so I can hit the ground running and start putting stuff into production. And with the funds that I already have now, I can start getting some of those things going so that hopefully I can mitigate that time frame, which I'm shooting for about 6 to 8 months to deliver the product after I've ordered it, simply because I have a fair idea of how the pressing industry works under normal circumstances.
Yeah.
So with COVID and all the different obstacles that they're facing, I'm trying to be mindful of that and not try to over deliver or over promise some sort of deadline that's unreasonable. I think 6 to 8 weeks is like a speedy delivery on vinyl. Reality is 3 to 4 months. So I'm just doubling it with COVID. So I want to get stuff into people's hands by fall and Christmas at the very latest. And I think that's a reasonable goal, being that we're in March.
How can folks take part in this? How can they help you make this a reality?
One of the cheapest way to help me out, it doesn't cost you a dime, just share my crowdfunding video that's available at thefiresidewake.com, or you can search YouTube, The Fireside Wake crowdfunding. That'll pop it up. Share that on your Facebook, social media, tell your friends about it. Anybody you know that appreciates crazy artists doing crazy art for art's sake, they're my demographic. So let them know, hey, there's this crazy guy doing this crazy thing and it's really high quality, check it out. The other thing you can do is purchase a copy of The Fireside Wake on vinyl. That's the most important thing. After that, it would be, feel free to purchase any of the other products that I have, or if you would like to just donate, I'll absolutely accept just straight up donations.
Well, it definitely is something to be proud of, I will tell you that. And we are very much looking forward to seeing the vinyl version of that out there. And I would encourage anyone who is a fan of some great, great music, the many styles that you represent, to give you a hand, visit your website and take part in that crowdfunding campaign. And we'll do all we can here, both at the store and on the record show, to get that word out for you, sir.
I appreciate that, Jim.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Andy, for being here, and good luck with this. And we will keep up to date and check in with you often on the progress of this.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Well, it's time once again on the record show to take a look forward at what we've got hitting the shelves at an indie record store near you. Joining us again is Ken Norton from Ingram Entertainment. Ken, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Jim. How you doing?
Good, sir. Thank you. So we've got some cool stuff, not only this week, but coming down the pipe. But let's start off with what folks can expect to see on their record store shelves this Friday.
We do. We've got the latest from Richie Blackmore, his Blackmore's Rainbow project that he does with his wife. It's a little, he's from Deep Purple fame, but this is a little more of a sort of a English folk influence kind of project that his fans are familiar with. It's called Nature's Light, and it's going to be on yellow vinyl. We also have a, speaking of colored vinyl, Santana record. It's called Soul Sacrifice. It's a collection, and that's going to be on a tricolor vinyl. And it's, it's got a live version of Evil Ways. And
the tricolor I see is on green, white, and red, and that being the colors of the Mexican flag if you hold the vinyl just right.
Exactly.
So that should be kind of cool.
Also, from the 80s, one of those stalwart 80s bands, Madness, there's a very best of collection called Our House. Coming
That's
out
cool.
this week. And Motorhead, a collection on the same label that brought you the Santana record. Cleopatra is the name of the record company. It's on colored vinyl. It's a sort of a celebration of Lemmy, and it culls tracks from various places and includes, it's very heavy on covers of AC/DC, Judas Priest, Elvis, Queen, U2, and more.
That sounds like it's going to be a fun one. I gotta back up a little bit to Madness, because you know what that reminds me of, and this is going to give my age away. Back when MTV used to show music videos, but then they also showed this, was the British comedy The Young Ones.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the Madness played in on that a lot, I believe. So there's a trip back. So,
very
so I'm looking forward to that.
Heavy, man.
Yeah, there we go. I'm just so bored. No, I'm not actually. This is great. So, well, is there anything else this week that we need to watch for?
Those are the highlights for this week. We got some things for the following week that people want to pay attention to. First and foremost, probably, is the Chris Cornell collection. This is a collection of him doing some of his favorite songs by other artists. He was in the process of recording this project before his passing, and it's called "No One Sings Like You Anymore," and it's just it's going to be an amazing record for the Chris Cornell fans. A lot of this material hasn't been otherwise available, and it just the track I heard was spectacular. So that'll be something to look forward to.
And this is coming the week after next.
The week after, that's on the 19th of March.
Okay.
And same week, we'll have a new Lana Del Rey. It's called Chemtrails Over the Country Club. This is another music record, not like her spoken word record that came out last year. And the latest from Fleet Foxes is going to be out that week. And expect some colored vinyl for the indie stores, including your friends at Radio Wasteland.
Appreciate that, as always. What, if you don't mind me asking, what are the pre-orders looking like so far for the Greta Van Fleet? I know that's coming up in April and not too far off. Is it looking like there's going to be a big demand on that?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be huge.
Okay. We will put in our orders and hope for the best with that respect. So now I also do have an admission to make. I mentioned this on our Record Stores live broadcast on Saturday. The whole deal with the Fleetwood Mac rumors and why that is selling so much, I got to admit, I had no clue. You mentioned the TikTok video, and I'll admit freely, I had to go and seek some help and look that up and see what that was all about. Over my head, completely escaped me, but it's amazing that is still selling that record.
It's quite a phenomenon. So much so that now there's a commercial featuring Mick Fleetwood and Stevie Nicks in the commercial, with the music playing and the guy on his skateboard, cranberry juice.
Might as well take advantage of it and ride the wave, I guess, while you can. So, well, cool. So we hopefully still have plenty. We'll get some more of the rumors if we need to from you guys, just to to tide us through.
Yeah.
So,
Still
Matthew,
there,
excuse me.
Get them now.
I do have a hankering for some cranberry juice, so I think I'm going to let you go for the day here. All right, Ken, you have a good week, and we will talk to you next week on The Record Show. Thanks again.
Perfect. Thank you.
So for today's A Closer Look, I thought we'd actually take a closer listen. And that's because I'd like to take a deeper dive into Andy Dalton's The Fireside Wake. Now, we talked earlier with Andy about his desire to turn this into a vinyl release and the crowdfunding process he's going through to reach that end. And with over 90 minutes of music, that release is going to cover 3 LPs. With so much breadth to a release, you'd think that it could be pigeonholed into just sticking with a certain sound. But Andy has this unique talent to carry this forward, starting off with some spacey sound effects and then diving right into his harder, almost speed metal sound that he had with his earlier career. But getting past that, the album does hit its stride with some great rock and roll, including a song called Hey You.
Hey you got a solid grip on me like super glue. Hey you, can I try to apologize before we're through?
And Andy kind of rounds this out with that space rock sound that he talked about with a song called 4 a.m.
I've got a bad feeling about this. We're still coming in too fast and too steep. This ship wasn't meant for this sharp of an entry. No,
Now, with so much music cutting across different stylings, you'd think that there's no way to tie all of this together. But somehow Andy does find a way through all 19 tracks. Not quite, but possibly getting into the concept album territory.
It is and it isn't. I did not intentionally write the songs to necessarily be a full-on narrative. However, there are so many reoccurring themes and ideas and things going on that, to me, I can absolutely hear a narrative and a story to it.
So whether you're into the heavier speed metal, the more experimental stuff, the bluesiness, or just the straight-up rock and roll, Andy Dalton's The Fireside Wake is an album that you will enjoy. At 90 minutes plus, it's a great listen, and it carries itself forward very, very seamlessly. We've already supported his crowdfunding campaign here at our record store, and we would ask that you consider it as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing this and hearing this release on vinyl. We'll make sure to put up links to Andy's crowdfunding campaign and his websites below in the description. And finally today, we thought we'd wrap up with a new segment that we'll lovingly call Questionable Decisions in Album Cover Art Design. One of the reasons so many of us love vinyl record albums is that the covers are an art form unto themselves. You can look at them, you could put them in frames, mount them up on the wall, but they are a great, great part of the overall experience. But once in a while, you'll see a cover and wonder just what in the heck were they thinking? Now, this is in no way meant to disparage the artists, their music, or the designers. It's just a big question mark sometimes in my head when you look at these covers. Let's start off with 12-string bluegrass virtuoso Leo Kottke. And this is an album called Dreams and All That Stuff. I'm not quite certain what dream Leo Kottke's having here or why, but this is the cover we ended up with. Speaking of dreams, let's take a look at The Cure's album, The Cure, from 2004. Now, this cover art was actually designed by Robert Smith's nieces and nephews, and I guess they didn't realize that their drawings were going to be used on the album cover. By the way, the drawings are supposed to represent good dreams and bad dreams from each, and Smith decided to put them on the cover art for this album. Now, the 80s were a different time for lots of us, and I, for one, don't want to go back and look at too many pictures of myself from that time. But this album from Raven, The Pack is Back, these guys are rocking that 80s style right to the T. And finally today, it's Howdy Doody time, starring Buffalo Bob. And this album made all the worse by some water damage, but this is the stuff that nightmares are made of. Now, I know Howdy Doody was a very iconic and important part of early television history, but to put this on an album cover probably doesn't do well for kids. Thanks for watching The Record Show. If you haven't done so yet, please make sure to subscribe to the Radio Wasteland Records YouTube channel. And be sure to hit that notifications bell so you'll be alerted every time we upload new content.